Dustin Sherman. I live in South Anchorage, represented by Mr. Salt and Miss LaFrance. Hello, folks. Good to see you again as usual. I'm here tonight to testify against AO 2022-69. As evidenced by this last election period, the people of this state and the majority of the municipality has once again rejected your candidates. One of them even getting beaten by Santa Claus. This time it was for the representative of the state. The leading two candidates are Republican. Even with that, you still want to impose your will on the voters, and now importantly, their youth. Your position is not to enforce your will, but to listen to the people and do what the people want you to. Now you want total control over the youth who can't quite vote yet. There is a bright spot to this, however. Taking their voices now will harm you later. We are seeing that nationwide. The more you take now, the more it will come back to you in tenfold. Studies have shown that the generation coming up right now will be the most conservative youth in several generations. Why? Because they don't listen, nor do they believe the hype. They don't sit and listen to the media day in and day out, and they respect the political, and they reject the political polarization you yourselves have created. Congrats for waking up the masses. Do the right thing and allow them to choose their own reps. If you don't, I can assure you more and more of them will begin to show up. And I will use my influence and my voice to ensure that that happens. As far as training goes, I think Ms. Price did a bang-up job in the short time she served. The only thing she did, and it's obvious you didn't like it, she spoke freely and against your views. Nothing else. You couldn't control her. That's why you decided to pull this stunt. Period. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please come forward, state your name for the record, your community council, or the area of the community in which you live.
I'm Carol Dunphy, East Anchorage. I am the mother of Rebecca Dunphy, the current Youth Advisory Chairwoman. I am against AO 2022-69 as it would silence youth voices and appears to be influenced by erroneous assumptions. Before I start, let me get you some relevant background on the Youth Advisory Chairwoman's character. She is a compassionate human being. She loves fiercely. She stands up for the less fortunate. Why is she so strong and compassionate? Because she has suffered much. She celebrated her 10th birthday with her daddy coming home from the hospital after invasive, life-changing surgery. After his long, difficult recovery, she encountered physical and mental abuse from a teacher. Once we learned of these circumstances and adjusted her environment, her father, again, needed further invasive, traumatic cancer surgeries. He had 2 during her freshman year of high school. He had 3 more in her sophomore year of high school. Then, just 3 months after the last surgery, she turned 16 and COVID shutdowns began. More trauma. Did she sit down and feel sorry for herself? Nope. She began mentoring young girls who are enduring even harder situations. She showed up week in and week out and showed them how she recovered from trauma. She showed them how to accept people where they are, how to be welcoming, how to listen. What she saw was happening to the Anchorage youth made her decide to get involved with the Youth Advisory Commission. Back in December and January, after long months of school shutdowns, the new YAC decided that the best way to get youth voices heard again was to prioritize a nomination for the youth representative position. They submitted their nomination on January 21st. However, on January 27th, a former YAC member wrote an email to the Assembly members with scathing accusations against the current YAC after attending only 1 meeting. This former member accused the new members of being hostile and unwelcoming. In this email, the former member said, quote, "I strongly suggest the Assembly not approving any youth representative or alternative until the youth applications are open to all Anchorage youth, not just the YAC members," end quote. Interestingly enough, that is exactly what you did. Not only did you act in alignment with the former member's advice, but you also failed to investigate her allegations. The YAC chairman behind me was never consulted, never given the chance to present another side of the story. She was silenced. None of the Assembly has visited a YAC meeting. Well, in contrast, at the work session last Saturday, my daughter was not given instruction on how to get into the discussion queue, even though others were able to. Others were allowed to speak openly, but she was not. She was silenced again. I urge you to vote no on this.
Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Allard has a clarifying question for you. Ms. Allard?
Has Rebecca, when you were speaking to your daughter in reference to those allegations, could you tell me about that meeting of when that individual was attending without mentioning names, because I believe they're minors? Was there any sort of discrimination or anything that maybe happened, that maybe the kids don't understand how it works, or what the meeting was about that particular night, please?
From what I understand, they introduced each other and talked about what they were interested in. Again, I was not there.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please come forward. State your name for the record. And actually, Ms. Dunphy, you've already spoken to this item. So, Ms. Chewbacca, if you wish to testify, you may.
Madam Chair, point of order, please.
What is your procedural question, Ms. Allard?
I'm not really sure, but I believe Ms. Dunphy spoke on her behalf, but not as a member of the commission.
That is correct.
I see Mr. Constant over there shaking his head. Do you want to speak up, Chris, or is she the chair?
Ms. Allard, hold on, please, while I might consider your point of order. So you may testify as an individual, Ms. Dunphy, for 3 minutes.
I testified as an individual during general testimony, and right now I'm testifying as chair of the Youth Commission.
Okay, so you spoke in initial audience participation, which is there's no differentiation between individuals and groups in that portion, and you were speaking as an individual.
You made that clear, yes.
In the initial audience participation, we had you listed as chair of the Youth Advisory Commission, and then during the questioning piece, it appeared that you were speaking on behalf of the Youth Advisory Commission. However, in this case, we'll just go forward. You may speak as a member of a group. I will put 5 minutes to your time. Go ahead.
Good evening. Again, on behalf of the Youth Advisory Commission, I would like to invite the Anchorage Assembly to a joint work session with YAC. The last work session felt more like an ambush than a conversation, and we would like to continue the conversation. Based off the notice we received, we were unable to anticipate the additional participants because we were not informed they would be present. We had extremely little time to discuss the ordinance at hand in comparison to the members of the public that were there, who were former members of YAC and had more time to speak than the current members. We were not notified they would be there, as you can see in the email. We welcome the conversation with the other community advocates, but we'd like you to hear input from current YAC members as it pertains to the ordinance. We ask that you postpone this item until after the work session. Thank you for your time. We hope to continue and be included in this conversation in the near future. Members of the public, if you support the YAC, please join us in silent protest.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please state your name for the record, your community council.
Madam Chair, I was in
I'm sorry.
the queue for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Actually, if y'all would come back, I've got two members in the queue for you. First, Ms. Allard with a clarifying question, and then Mr. Dunbar with a clarifying question.
I apologize. Yeah, actually I do. Thank you. Did both you, I was on the phone, did both you young ladies attend the work session because you had mentioned work session?
Yes, ma'am.
When you were in that work session, how did it make you feel? And where do you, were you able to speak up as much as you had liked? That's two questions for each of you, please.
Actually, there's just one testifier. Go ahead, Ms. Dunphy.
I felt ambushed and attacked and hated. Thoroughly hated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, Ms. Dunphy, the clarifying question, because I think I misunderstood something, or there was a disagreement between me and Ms. Zolotel. So when you were collecting applications over the last several weeks, was that for the youth representative position or for the YAC itself? Because my understanding was it was for the YAC itself, but perhaps I was mistaken.
We are currently accepting applications for both the youth representative and YAC seats.
Okay. And so the sort of process leading up to last Wednesday, was that primarily about the YAC or the youth representative, and how do young people sort of differentiate between the two when they send you when they apply? What's the process for applying for the two things?
I'd be more than happy to discuss with you, but for the sake of time, I think we should let other people testify.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. No, but I hope folks continue to apply for the YSC. Thank you, Ms. Dunphy.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please state your name.
Madam Chair, I just had one last question for Ms. Dunphy.
Okay, you can be in the queue again with a second question. Go ahead.
Well, it's really not. It's a comment. I wanted to apologize for what happened to you on Friday. No adult should be teaching or treating children like that. Thank you for being up here tonight.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please come forward, state your name for the record, your community council, or the area of the community in which you live.
Irene Queetnow, District 3, not being represented by my representatives. I'm against Ordinance AO 2022-69. Almost exactly 1 year ago, I stood before you and testified about the Assembly giving themselves more and more power, and I'm going to repeat it in an amended version because it is still as valid as it was a year ago. An unknown author said, "Be careful who you let on your ship, because some people will sink the whole ship just because they can't be the captain." I thought that characterized now 8 of the Assembly members pretty accurately, except that you're not trying to sink the ship, you're leading a mutiny. Twice you have changed the code in regards to the elections, given the clerk unprecedented power to remove people and to make all kinds of important decisions on her own, and you made the elections less transparent, thus taking away the power and voice of the people. You have given the chair unprecedented power to remove people and cut people off and have them arrested for clapping, thus taking away the power and the voice of the people. You have an AO on the books to give yourself the power to remove the mayor, even though he was duly elected, thus taking away the power and the voice of the people. And now today you are voting on this ordinance before us to give yourself the power to solely decide who the youth representative is. Again, giving yourself the power and taking away the power and the voice of the youth. There is a distinct pattern here. You're removing systematically all opposing voices. If you do not like what we peasants have to say, what the mayor has to say, what another Assembly member has to say, for that matter, and now what the youth has to say, you make an AO to give yourself the power to silence them, because your arguments have not been able to convince anybody in the groups of people that I mentioned to agree with you. So shutting us up forcefully is your only way that you have left. Let me read the definition of a dictator again. One holding complete autocratic control, a person with unlimited governmental power, one ruling in an absolute and often oppressive way. That is you, and you're displaying it for everyone to see. And if anybody still thinks this has nothing to do with silencing the opposition, then they are consciously choosing to ignore the obvious. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Allard has a question for you.
Irene, why do you think that the adults in this room don't know better than the individuals, the young children on the assembly?
That's not a clarifying question.
Or do you?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, why do you said you're against this. Why do you think as adults we don't know better than them, than the youth?
They're youth representatives. They're representing their own people.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please state your name.